system or the vertebrate vascular system, we can say. Now, here, what is the main role of the circulatory system? What is the main role of this cardiovascular system? It transports the gases, that is oxygen and carbon dioxide. It transports the nutrients, waste products, hormones. It also transports the heat and the various other materials. And structurally, it consists of the heart, capillaries, arteries, as well as the veins. So now we'll see one by one what are the arteries, what are the capillaries, what are the veins, and how actually the heart, what is the structure of the heart present in all these things, and how many chambers of heart does this vertebrate possess. Okay. Now, so the main function or the main role of the cardiovascular system or the heart is nothing but transport of gases, nutrients, waste products, hormones, heat, as well as the other materials. So basically, it consists of the heart and the blood vessels in the form of arteries, veins, as well as capillaries. Now, what is the main role of the arteries? Now, arteries actually carry the blood away from the heart. They have muscular as well as the elastic walls, and they terminate in the capillary buds. Or they can say they end up in the capillary beds. So they carry the blood away from the heart. So that means they collect the blood from the heart and it carry it to the various organs. So it carries the blood away from the heart. It has got the muscular elastic walls and it terminates in the capillary beds. Now, next is what capillaries. Now, capillaries actually have very, very thin walls. Okay. And they are the site of exchange between the blood and the body cells. So it serves as an exchange site between the blood as well as the body cells. So it has very, very thin walls. So these are the capillaries, like you see. Now, this is the artery, this is the venule. Okay. And this is again artery here. Okay. This is the arteriole, where artery branches into fine branches, which we call it as the arteriole. Likewise, veins will divide into venules. Okay. And here you have the capillaries. And these are the various tissue cells. Now, when you talk about the structure of the, what do you say, the artery here we have seen. So from the heart, so the artery actually. So this is the arterioles. So artery divides into arterioles, you all know. So this is how, so from the heart, this will carry. And actually basic structure of the artery, no, it has got the lumen is being present and it has got the three different layers. One is called as the tunica externa or the adventitia. Then you have the middle layer, which consists of the tunica media, consisting of the smooth muscles and external elastic lamina. And it has internally, it is bounded by what? Tunica interna or the intima. And it consists of the endothelium as well as the subendothelium, along with the internal elastic lamina. So this is actually the basic structure of the artery, consisting of three regions. Outer region is called tunica externa or adventitia. Then you have got the middle region consisting of tunica media, which poses what? The smooth muscles as well as the external elastic lamina. And internally, it is bounded by the tunica interna or intima, consisting of endothelium as well as endothelium, along with the internal elastic lamina. So this is the basic structure of the artery. Now, this is the capillaries we have seen. So capillaries actually have got very, very thin walls, and it is basically the site of exchange between the blood and the body cells. Now, coming to the veins, veins carry the blood back to the heart. So it will collect the blood from different, the regions, and then bring back the blood to the heart. So it carries the blood back to the heart. It have less muscles in their walls rather than the arteries, but the walls are very, very elastic. Okay, and it begin at the end of the capillary bed. So actually we can say first starting with from the arteries will end up in the capillaries. So actually, and this from the capillaries end. So the veins will start. So they say that it will begin at the end of the capillary beds, whereas the arteries will end up at the capillary ends. Okay, so veins will begin at the end of the capillary beds. So it carries the blood back to the heart and it has less number of cells and it is actually more elastic, okay, when compared to that of the arteries. So this is actually the structure of the, the veins. Now coming to the lymphatic system. So now this was all about what we have talked about is the blood vascular system, where it consists of the heart, then it consists of the various blood vessels. We have seen the blood vessels in three different forms, that is arteries, capillaries, as well as the veins. Now the lymphatic system, it is not seen in the lower animals, that is invertebrates. It is present only in the vertebrates, except the cyclostome fishes. Okay, now this lymphatic system consists of the lymph as well as the lymphatic channels. Now, these lymphatic channels are in the form of lymph capillaries, lymph vessels, as well as the lymph nodes. So, lymph is what? The tissue fluid. It is lies between the lying between and bathing body cells. It possesses what? The lymph capillaries, which is nothing but a fine network of minute blind ending channels which collects the lymph. And lymph vessels are what? They are formed by the union of these lymph capillaries, which finally empty into the veins. And the lymph nodes are found only in the mammals on the lymph vessels, like for example, vessels as well as the lymphocytes of the blood. These lymph nodes, you have two different types of lymph nodes, like primary lymph node and the secondary lymph node. Okay, so these lymph nodes actually serves a purpose in the what do you say, immunity. So they are very important. So the lymphatic system consists of the lymph as well as the lymphatic channels in the form of capillaries, vessels, as well as the lymph nodes. So what is a lymph? It is a tissue fluid which lies between and also between the body cells. Now, lymph capillaries actually they form a network of the minute channels which collects the lymph, and the lymph vessels are formed by the union of these lymph capillaries, and the lymph nodes are found in the on the lymph vessels as well as on the lymphocytes of the blood. So this is about the lymphatic system. Now we'll see the evolution of the heart in the vertebrates, how actually the heart has been evolved in the invertebrates. Now in the vertebrates. Now you are actually in vertebrates, you have different groups of animals, starting from the fishes, like fishes, amphibians, reptiles, aves, and mammals. So how the heart actually has been evolved. When we compare actually the heart with that of the invertebrates and the vertebrates. So in the invertebrates, they don't have well-defined circulatory system, well-defined heart, as well as well-defined, what do you say, the blood vessels they don't have. But when you come to the vertebrates, you have got well-defined, the systems. Not only the heart, that is a circulatory system, but also the other types of systems are also well-developed. Okay, so here, in case of vertebrates, the heart, how actually the heart has evolved in different types of the vertebrate animals. Now, actually, hello students, are you all listening? Hello?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now the evolution how of heart with reference to the in case of the vertebrates. So in the embryo, two longitudinal endothelial tubes they formed by the mesenchyme in the ventral mesentery below the archetron, they fuse together to give rise the heart. So that is how actually the heart is evolved in vertebrates. So that means during the embryonic stage, what happens is you have two longitudinal endothelial tubes. So these longitudinal endothelial tubes, which are formed by the mesenchyme, okay, below the archetron, they fuse together and give rise to the heart. So that is how actually the heart is being evolved in case of the vertebrates. See here. This is embryonic stage. This is the mesenchyme. So the years of embryo showing the stages in the development of the heart. How actually this is. So when you take an embryo, in the embryo, during the embryonic stages, what happens is you have got two longitudinal endothelial tubes. So we can say that heart evolves from an endothelium. Okay, so two longitudinal endothelial tubes, which is formed by the mesenchyme below the archetron region, they fuse together and give rise to the heart. So that is how actually the heart is being formed or it is evolved in case of the vertebrates. Now, you have different types of what is a heart you observe in case of vertebrates, like we say single chambered heart, or then you have double chambered heart, okay, or three chambered heart, four chambered heart. So how actually this heart has evolved, we have seen now. Now coming to the presence of the, based on the number of chambers, the heart has been classified into different types. So we can call them as single chambered heart, we can call them as double chambered heart, then three chambered heart, as well as a four chambered heart. Now the single chambered heart actually we call it as a primitive heart. Now it is amphioxus, that is a primitive chordate, a true heart is not found. So here, how actually, why we are calling it as a single chambered heart in case of these primitive chordates is because they don't possess a true heart, but here a part of ventral aorta beneath the pharynx is muscular and it contracted and it acts as a heart. Okay, so it is not actually basically a true heart. The single chambered heart is not a true heart. So this is basically present in the primitive chordate, especially in the amphioxus. So here, what happens is a part of a ventral aorta, which is being present beneath the pharyngeal region. It is muscular in nature and it is contracted in nature, and this will function as a heart. And so this, they call it as nothing but a single chambered heart, which actually, so this heart actually is very small, muscular and contractile, and it behaves as a heart in case of the primitive chordate recit in amphioxus. So this is actually called as a single chambered heart. That means it is having only a single, what do you say, chamber. Next is what you have a two-chambered heart. Now, in cyclostome fishes, actually there are four chambers arranged in a linear order. A thin-walled sinus venosus is there, and also it has a muscular atrium, a muscular ventricle, and also a muscular conus arteriosus or bulbus cordis. So it lies in the body cavity in which other visceral organs are also present. So here, actually, this is a two-chambered heart, but two-chambered heart. But in elasmobranchs, except diploid, the circulatory system in fishes from cyclostomes to teleost, only unoxygenated blood will goes to the heart. From there, it is pumped to the gills, aerated, and then it is distributed to the heart. So here, in case of this two-chambered heart, but here, though it consists of what do you say, the sinus venosus, atrium, ventricle, as well as the conus arteriosus, but they don't have, actually they are not organized into complete chambers. So they are present complete chambers. So that they actually give rise, they form only the two chambers. So that is why you call it as a two-chambered heart. See here, it is there. See here. So only the two-chambered heart you find it over here. So here, though you have a ventral aorta is there, conus is there. These are the semicircular lunar valves. Okay, at the heart. So it has got a ventricle is there. It has got an atrium, and here it has got. So they are not actually totally, what do you say, the organized into complete intact chamber. So that is why we call it as a two-chambered heart. So they say that in cyclostomes, you find what four chambers, no doubt, but they are arranged in a linear order. They are arranged in a linear order consisting of a sinus venosus, atrium, ventricle, as well as a conus arteriosus, and they lies in the body cavity in which other visceral organs are also present. So this we can say the two-chambered heart, we find it in the case of the fishes. Now, here in teleost, for example, teleost heart is also similar to that of the cartilaginous fishes, except bulbus arteriosus is present rather than a conus arteriosus. Okay. Now, next is what? A three-chambered heart. The three-chambered heart means actually in the diploid, a septum divides the atrium into a right and a left chamber. And this is correlated with the use of the swim bladder as an organ of respiration. So just now we have talked about the two-chambered heart, though they consist of an auricle, they consist of a ventricle, and they have a sinus arteriosus as well as a conus arteriosus. But here, they don't have the what is a valve which divides them completely into the four chambers. Okay, so they are divided only into two chambers. So that is why we are calling them as a two-chambered heart. As a two-chambered heart. So in almost all the fishes, you find actually a two-chambered heart, except that there is a slight variation with reference to the teleost fishes. What they say is instead of the, what do you say, the conus arteriosus, in the teleost fishes, you have a bulbus arteriosus. So that is the only difference between the cartilaginous fishes and to that of the teleost fishes. The next is what? A three-chambered heart. In a three-chambered heart, that is in the dipnoids, that is in fishes, dipnoid, here, a septum is being present, which divides the atrium into what? A right chamber as well as a left chamber. So here, why actually this is dividing for this? It is correlated with the use of a swim bladder. So as an organ of respiration. So you all know actually swim bladder helps, or it is considered as an organ of respiration, and it represents actually the first step towards the development of double type of circulatory system, whereby both the oxygenated as well as the unoxygenated blood will enter the heart and are kept separate. So a three-chambered heart, we can say that actually in the dipnones, a septum is being present, which divides the atrium into a right chamber as well as a left chamber. So that is why we call it as a three-chambered heart. So that is how a three-chambered heart actually has been evolved. Okay. And this is, they say that actually this is because of the use of the swim bladder as an organ of respiration. Now, three-chambered heart, actually we see in which different, what do you say, the organisms we find the three-chambered heart. Okay. So in amphibians, the dorsal atrium shifts the anterior to the ventricle. So here, the atrium is completely divided into right and left chambers and has no foramen ovale in the interauricular septum, which remains open in the dipnoids. So in the amphibia, you can see the three-chambered heart. Again, in the reptilias, again here the heart is further advanced. Here the atrium is always completely separated into the right and the left chamber, and in many forms also the sinus venosus is incorporated into the wall of the right atrium. And further, the ventricle is also partly divided by septum in most of the reptiles, and in alligators and crocodiles, it is completely two-chambered. So we can say that actually the three-chambered heart, we see it is in the amphibians as well as in the reptiles. So how this three-chambered heart actually has evolved? Initially, when we have seen in the, the fishes, so in the fishes, actually, you have got a auricle as well as a ventricle. Though you have a sinus arteriosus as well as a bulbous arteriosus or conus arteriosus, the arteriosus is present, representing, but there they don't have the valves. That means the atrium as well as the ventricle, they are not actually divided. They are not actually divided into complete chambers. So that is the reason why we say it is a two-chambered heart, which we see exclusively in case of the fishes. Now, in case of the amphibians, here they say that actually the atrium is being divided completely into right chamber as well as the left chamber. So that is why, so since the atrium is divided into two chambers, so two chambers of the atrium as well as the ventricle, so it is considered to be as a three-chambered heart. So likewise, in case of the reptiles also, the heart is further advanced. So here also the atrium is completely divided into right and left chamber and many forms. And so in case of few, the reptiles, they say the ventricle is also there, partly divided by a septum in most of the reptiles. And especially the alligators and crocodiles, it is completely two-chambered. Okay, so that is how actually the heart is being, the evolved, that is a three-chambered heart. Next, you have the four-chambered heart. Now, four-chambered heart actually is present in case of the aves as well as the mammals, that is birds and mammals. So here the ventricle is completely divided into two, so that the heart is actually two-chambered, where you are having two auricles and two ventricles. So there is a complete separation, you can say, of the venous blood as well as the arterial blood. So here, that is the reason why you have a double circulation in which there is no mixing of the blood at any place. So that is how actually the four-chambered heart has been evolved. So now, how the heart has been evolved? So with reference to the heart, you all know actually heart is a contractile and a muscular organ. It is present in almost all the vertebrates. Now, based on the presence of the chambers, the heart in the vertebrates have been classified into different types, like you have a two-chambered heart, three-chambered heart, as well as a four-chambered heart. Now, two-chambered heart, when you call it as a two-chambered heart, when you have an auricle as well as a ventricle, or you can say atrium as well as a ventricle. Apart from that, it also has a sort the sinus arteriosus as well as a conus arteriosus, or you can say bulbous arteriosus. But here you have the atrium as well as the the ventricle. In this in the case of fishes, it is not divided. So they remain as a single chamber. So that is why you call such a type of heart as a two-chambered heart. But when you are calling it as a three-chambered heart, when the auricle or the atrium is divided completely into a right chamber as well as a left chamber, then you call it as the three-chambered heart. Here, the ventricle is not divided. Only the auricle is divided. So that is why two chambers of the auricles plus one chamber of the ventricle, it makes it as a three-chambered heart. Now, when you're talking about the four-chambered heart, here both the ventricle as well as the auricle is divided into two chambers, that is right and left. So that means there is a complete separation of the auricle as well as the ventricle. So that is the reason why here in case of here we see double circulation, where there is no mixing of the arterial blood to that of the venous blood. So that is how actually the four-chambered heart has been evolved, and it is seen exclusively in case of the mammals as well as the apes. So this is about the four-chambered heart. Now see the evolution of the heart in different, the chordate animals. You have seen the generalized fish or the elasmobranch. So you have got only the auricle as well as the ventricle. There is no, division at all. So the teleost are the bony fishes. Okay, then the diploid fishes, actually they say there is a, a division. Then you have the urodele, that is the amphibia. Okay, so in amphibians, you find actually the three-chambered heart, where you have here right auricle as well as the left auricle, and you have a ventricle. So here the auricle is being divided. And then when you talk about here also another amphibian, right auricle and left auricle, and you have a ventricle. And the reptiles, in some of the fishes, like some of the reptiles, they are divided. Both the ventricle as well as the auricles are divided. So that is the reason why they possess a four-chambered heart. Only few. Okay, but in crocodile reptiles here, crocodile reptile as well as Mesolamantran reptile. But when you talk about the birds and mammals, there is a complete separation of the artery as well as the vein. So where the artery as well as the artery auricle, not artery, auricle as well as the ventricle are completely divided into right and the left chamber. So here we see right auricle, right ventricle, and left ventricle. So that is how the heart actually has been evolved, or you can say the diversity of heart that is being seen in the different chordate animals. So from the double, what is a two-chambered heart to the four-chambered heart, how it has been evolved. So this is about the body say the evolution of the heart. Okay, so hello students, is it okay? Hello.
Okay,
Okay, ma'am. Clear, ma'am.
Okay, so here you have to talk about when you're talking about the circulatory system. What is circulatory system? So circulatory system basically in vertebrates they say it is consists of two types. One is called as a blood vascular system, and the other you call it as a lymphatic system. So here, since they have concentrated only on the blood vascular system, we have to concentrate only on the blood vascular system. So here blood vascular system consists of what? Nothing but the blood. That is, it involves, so to actually the circulate the blood, what do you require? You require the heart and you require the blood vessels. So the blood vascular system consists of the blood, the heart, as well as the arteries, veins, as well as the capillaries. Now we have seen how actually the evolution of heart, how the heart actually has been evolved from in the chordates, okay, from the fishes to that of the mammals. So we have seen the different types of the organization of the heart in different chordate animals, like you have seen two-chambered heart, three-chambered heart, as well as a four-chambered heart with the examples. Okay, so this is all about the heart. Now I will share another PPT. Okay, the same thing again I'm repeating. Okay, this is another PPT where actually the evolution of heart, or you can say the heart has evolved in different vertebrate organisms. So here, when you talk about the heart, you all know actually it is an unpaired organ, and its origin is bilateral. You all know, and it has been evolved in the embryonic stages. You can when you see the embryonic development, the mesenchyme will form what? A group of endocardial cells below the pharynx, and these cells only later on what happens? They will form the heart. So the splanchnic mesoderm, you can say, lying below the endoderm, it will get folded longitudinally around the endocardial tube. And this, the two-layered tube again will form the heart in the future, what do you say, the organism. So here, the two-layered tube will form the heart in which the splanchnic mesoderm will thicken to form a myocardium or the muscular wall of the heart, and the outer thin epicardium or the visceral pericardium. Okay. So then later on, so the heart actually what? It is a straight tube, but it increases in length and it becomes S-shaped because its ends are fixed. So then later on, the appearance of valves, constrictions, as well as the partitions in the heart and actually will form and based on the will form later. Okay, so this is how actually the heart has been evolved. Now we have just now talked about the single chambered heart, two chambered heart. Now coming to the single chambered heart, you all know actually it is found in amphioxus, that is the primitive chordates where the true heart is not being found. So here a part of ventral aorta which lies below the pharynx, which is muscular in nature and it's contractile in nature and it acts as a heart. So that is a single chambered heart. You can talk, give an example. When you talk about a two-chambered heart, in cyclostome fishes, though there are four chambers arranged in a linear order and a thin-walled sinus venosus, then you have a muscular atrium in the form of auricle, then you have a ventricle, and also sinus conus arteriosus is there. Conus arteriosus is there. That is, the bulbous bodies is there, but it lies in the body cavity with other visceral organs are present. And here there is no, what is a division. So that is why we call it as a two-chambered heart. Why we are calling it as a two-chambered heart? Because here only one auricle as well as one ventricle is being present. So you can give the examples as cyclostome fishes. Single-chambered heart, you can give the examples in amphioxus. Two-chambered heart, you can give the examples in cyclostomes, where you have the auricle is there, ventricle is there, sinus venosus is there, and also conus arteriosus is there. But the atria, what is it, the auricle as well as the ventricle, they are single chamber. There is no division. So that is why you consider it as a two-chambered heart. Then you have in the elasmobranch fishes, they say except the diploid fishes. Okay, except the diploid fishes, the circulatory system in fishes from cyclostomes to the teleost, only unoxygenated blood will go to the heart. From then it is pumped to the gills. Okay. Then here they have the sinus venosus and all those things. So we can say, so it is a two-chambered heart, we can say. Okay. So in case of the fishes, now the stages in the formation of heart they have given. Then in the teleost fishes also, I mean, they have here they have mentioned about how actually the heart is being what do you say, the pumping of the blood will take place in the heart, and instead of the what do you say, the conus arteriosus, they have the bulbous arteriosus. Okay. Now next is what you have, the three-chambered heart. Now in the three-chambered heart, that is in the diploens, a septum will be present in the atrium, or you can say the atrium or the auricle divides into two chambers, that is right and the left chamber. So that is the reason why we call it as a three-chambered heart. Ventricle does not divide, but only the auricle or the atrium will divide. Okay. So this is about the three-chambered heart. The same thing what I'm repeating again. So in case of the amphibians, again, how the process will go on. So in case of amphibians also, actually you find a three-chambered heart. Then you have the reptiles. Okay. Also a three-chambered heart. Then the embryonic conus arteriosus splits into three instead of the two vessels. So this is how they did. Then you have got the four-chambered heart. Four-chambered heart is present exclusively in the aves and mammals. Here, the ventricle also divides into two regions. That is the left ventricle as well as the right ventricle, like the auricle. So that is why we call it as a four-chambered heart. So this is, so here in the circulatory system, you have to talk about what is circulatory system, how actually the heart has been evolved with reference to the number of chambers, based on the number of chambers, and what are the different blood vessels that you find, what is their structure, and what is their role in pumping of the blood or in the functioning of the circulatory system. Okay. Students, any doubt you have regarding this?
No, ma'am. Clear, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now we will go to the respiratory system. Okay. If you have any doubt, you can ask in the, what do you say, the circulatory system. So here you have to mention about what is circulatory system. Okay. Then mention about the heart, mention about the different blood vessels. So here, basic organ in the circulatory system is nothing but the heart. So how actually, first of all, how heart has originated, okay, how it has originated, how it has evolved, and what is its role. Okay. Then what are the, based on the chambers, how the heart actually has been classified into different types of heart. Like you have single chambered heart, where do you find? Give the example. Two chambered heart, then three chambered heart, and the four chambered heart, and what is there and how the actually it will function. Okay. So this you have to talk about in the what do you say, the circulatory system. Okay. Now next is we will talk about the respiratory system. Hello, students. Now, next topic is about the respiratory system. So, you all know actually the respiratory system, like the circulatory system, is also an important system in the body. So, here the respiratory system actually is involved in the process of breathing. So, for respiration, we need oxygen. So, we take in oxygen, you all know, and we give out carbon dioxide. So, the respiratory system involves what? The process of the breathing or the process of respiration, where exchange of gases will take place, that is taking in oxygen and giving out carbon dioxide. Now, when you talk about the respiration, you have different types of respirations are there. Now, what do you mean by respiration, first of all, and what are the different types of respiration we will see? Okay. Now, coming to the respiratory system actually requires the organs which actually participate in the process or in the mechanism of the respiration or the breathing. Now, cellular respiration actually it involves what? The breakdown of the organic molecules to produce ATP. So why actually the phenomenon or the respiration is important? Because whatever the food that we take in, okay, so that food actually has to be broken down. So the breakdown of these organic molecules, that is nothing but the breakdown of this food to produce the ATP, that is energy in the form of ATP, is nothing but called as cellular respiration. So cellular respiration is what? It involves what? Nothing but the breakdown of the food particles, the food that we take in. Okay. So in this, what we have an organic molecule. So the breakdown of the organic molecules to produce the energy in the form of ATP is nothing but called as the cellular respiration. So what happens in this is a sufficient supply of oxygen actually is required for the aerobic respiratory machinery, that is in the Krebs cycle and also in the electron transport system. So to convert this stored organic energy into the energy that is being trapped in the form of ATP. So likewise, what happens? The carbon dioxide is also generated by the cellular metabolism and it should be removed from the cell. So there must be an exchange of gases. So carbon dioxide should leave the cell, oxygen should enter the cell. So the animals have the organ systems involved in facilitating this exchange as well as in the transport of gases. Okay, so that is how so respiration mechanism actually is being attached with the digestive system, we can say. Why? Because the food that we take in actually has to be converted. It has to be converted and it has to be broken down. So the food that we take in the form of organic components or in the form of organic molecules, actually what happens, it has to be broken down. So this involves a process of nothing but respiration. That is what we call it as cellular respiration. So cellular respiration, what it will do, so inside the cells, what happens is the organic molecules or the organic components will break down, releasing the energy in the form of ATP. So for this, you require a sufficient amount of oxygen is being required. It is not an easy task. You require a sufficient amount of oxygen is required for this aerobic respiratory machinery in the form of Krebs cycle as well as the electron transport system. So to convert this stored organic energy into the the energy that is being trapped in the form of ATP. So during this process, what happens? During this process, what happens is the carbon dioxide is also being generated by the cellular metabolism, and this carbon dioxide that is being generated should be expelled out. It should be removed. So there should always be an exchange of gases to maintain the balance. There should be always between an exchange of gases. So that exchange of gases is in the form of oxygen and carbon dioxide. That is, you have to take in oxygen and give out carbon dioxide. So we can say the process of respiration or the process of breathing actually involves nothing but taking in oxygen and giving out carbon dioxide. So for this phenomena, you need to have a respiratory system. You need to have a respiratory system. Now, the respiratory system actually, you have different types of respiratory organs. So many animals actually have got the lungs. Apart from these lungs, they have got the trachea. Many or most of the animals, they respire through the, the skin. They respire through the lungs, they respire through the trachea, they respire through the spiracles and all those things. Now we'll see what is the, the diversity of this respiratory system, okay, in different chordate animals or in different vertebrate animals. So actually, two types of respiration you have. One is called as anaerobic respiration and the other one you call it as aerobic respiration. So what is cellular respiration? You know, cellular respiration is nothing but it takes place in the cells. So here, the organic components or the organic nutrients are being broken down with the release of energy. So this occurs in two forms. One is called as anaerobic respiration, and the other one you call it as aerobic respiration. Now we'll see anaerobic respiration actually is nothing but it is without the air. So therefore, this type of cellular respiration actually does not require oxygen to produce the energy. Okay, but sometimes what happens is there is not enough oxygen around to respire. So, but still they need the energy to survive. So here, due to the lack of oxygen, what happens is they carry out the respiration in the absence of oxygen to produce the energy that they require. So this is we call it as anaerobic respiration, and this is usually seen in lower plants as well as in the microorganisms. So in the absence of oxygen, what happens is the glucose that is being derived from the food, what happens is it is broken down into the alcohol as well as the carbon dioxide with the release of energy or with the production of energy. So this is actually the mechanism of anaerobic respiration. So anaerobic respiration is also being used up by the multicellular organisms as a temporary response to oxygen-less conditions. So it is not necessary that it occurs only in the lower organisms. Sometimes this anaerobic respiration also is being utilized by the multicellular organisms when they don't have enough or sufficient amount of oxygen. Okay. So during heavy or intensive exercise, such as running and sprinting, cycling or weight and all those things, you require high demand. So in such cases, as the supply of oxygen is limited, then in such cases also anaerobic respiration actually will come into picture. So where what happens is in this, the glucose actually will be converted into lactic acid with the release of energy. So that is how the anaerobic respiration will take place. So you have the cellular respiration is of two types. One is anaerobic respiration and the other one is the aerobic respiration. Now we have seen anaerobic respiration occurs in the absence of oxygen. It basically occurs in the unicellular organisms, especially the lower plants as well as in the microorganisms. Sometimes even the multicellular organisms, when they don't have the, oxygen, less amount of oxygen, they are not able to receive the sufficient amount of oxygen. At that time, even they utilize the anaerobic respiration or they make use of the anaerobic respiration. Okay. So this is how the diagram showing the anaerobic respiration. See here. So actually it occurs in the form of glucose, that is glycolysis, pyruvate. So here actually no oxygen, and aerobic respiration you require the oxygen. Okay. So when in the presence of oxygen you say it is aerobic, and no oxygen you say it is anaerobic. So ethanol or lactic acid, when there is no oxygen, actually the lactic acid will be formed. So only 2 ATP molecules actually are evolved over here. But in case of the oxygen, that is aerobic respiration, it is called as it occurs in the mitochondria, and 30 to 32 ATP molecules are being produced. Okay. So this is about the generalized diagram of the respiration. Now we'll see what is aerobic respiration. Now aerobic respiration actually means with air. So it requires oxygen. So therefore aerobic respiration actually is a process of cellular respiration that uses the oxygen. And this type of respiration actually is common in most of the plants and in animals, including humans, birds, as well as the other mammals. So here, in this case, what we do, while breathing, we inhale the air that contains oxygen and we exhale the air that contains a carbon dioxide. So as we breathe in, what happens? Oxygen-rich air is being transported to all the parts of our body, okay, and ultimately reach to each part of the cell. So inside the cell, what happens? The food which contains the glucose, it is broken down actually into carbon dioxide and water with the help of this oxygen. So in this process, what happens of the breaking down of the food particle actually will release energy, which is then utilized by our body. Then the energy that is being released via the aerobic respiration actually will help the plants as well as the animals to grow and grow. So this process actually can be simple, like actually the glucose will take up the oxygen and it will form the carbon dioxide as well as the water plus energy. So this aerobic respiration actually is a continuous process and it happens all the time inside the cells of the animals as well as the plants. So this is about the aerobic respiration. So what we can say is the difference between anaerobic and aerobic is anaerobic respiration does not require the oxygen, whereas aerobic respiration always requires the oxygen. So it occurs in the presence of oxygen. So we need air. So when we actually inhale the air, which contains oxygen, that we take in, and then as we breathe in, then you have the oxygen will be entering into your body, that is being transported into each and every part of your cell. And once it reaches the cell, the food which contains the glucose will be converted. Okay, it takes in oxygen, it will convert the glucose molecule into carbon dioxide, water, as well as the energy. So then this carbon dioxide actually will be released out when we exhale the air. So that is how the process of aerobic respiration will take place. So this is the aerobic respiration, and it occurs actually in the mitochondrial cell. Okay. Now, anaerobic versus aerobic respiration. Just now we have seen the differences. So here, anaerobic respiration and aerobic respiration. Here you have only the glucose molecule, but here you have the glucose along with the oxygen. Here you don't have oxygen, and combustion is incomplete. So the combustion of food molecules in the form of glucose will be incomplete. It will not be complete, whereas in aerobic it will be complete. And the energy that is being yielded with the help of anaerobic is very low, only in the form of 2 ATP molecules you get it. Whereas in aerobic respiration, it is very high, about 36 to 38 ATP. And the end products of this anaerobic respiration, in animals, it will be lactic acid, whereas in yeast, it will be ethanol plus carbon dioxide. Whereas in aerobic, it will be carbon dioxide plus water. And the location means anaerobic respiration takes place in cytoplasm, whereas aerobic respiration occurs both in the cytoplasm as well as in the mitochondrion. And the stages which involves is the glycolysis as well as fermentation. And here anaerobic, it is glycolysis, okay, link reaction, Krebs cycle, as well as in the electron transport chain. So that is how we have the difference between the anaerobic and the aerobic respiration talks about. Okay, so this is about. Now coming to the different methods of respiration, we'll see. Now this is very, very important, because now we want to deal with the the diversity of the respiratory system in different chordate animals or in different vertebrate animals. So first of all, we'll see what are the different types of respiratory mechanism and what are the different types of respiratory organs that you see in different chordate animals, and how the process of respiration actually occurs in these different animals. Okay. Now first is respiration by diffusion. So respiration by diffusion means actually nothing but it occurs through the general body surface, that is through the skin. So here in single cell organisms, you all know, the oxygen and the carbon dioxide, they simply diffuse through the general body surface, that is through the cell membrane. But however, the slow diffusion rate of the oxygen relative to carbon dioxide limits the size of the single cell. So in the single cell organisms, since they are very, very minute, they are very, the size is very, very less. So therefore, the diffusion rate also will be very, very less. But in case of the higher organisms, actually the diffusion rate will be more. So the simple animals that lack the specialized exchange surfaces, they have what flattened tubular or thin shaped body plans, which are not which are most efficient for the gaseous exchange. So these simple animals are rather small in size. So the unicellular organisms, like you see, okay, how this, especially in case of these, you can say the protozoans and all those things like amoeba. So how actually the exchange mechanism will take place in the unicellular organism. So here the distance is very, very small. They are very, very minute and the distance is very small. So how actually the oxygen is being taken in and the carbon dioxide is low. So here the, the diffusion rate will be very, very less. But when you talk with reference to the higher, the vertebrates, in case of the vertebrates, though they are very, very big, so that is the reason why the diffusion rate, though actually they perform the respiration through the skin, that is through the general body surface, there the diffusion rate will be very, very high. So the respiration, first method, the method is of respiration is by diffusion. So the diffusion method you observe only in the single cell organisms, like you have seen in amoeba. And here, since they lack the specialized, the excretory system, these animals are very, very simple and it takes place through the general body surface and the diffusion rate is very, very less. Okay. Now here, the respiration through the body surface. Okay, through the body surface mechanism. Here, see the larger animals, they cannot maintain the gaseous exchange by diffusion action through their outer surface. So what happened? They have developed the respiratory surfaces, variety of respiratory surfaces that will increase the surface area for the respiratory mechanism or for the exchange of these gases. So respiratory surface actually is being covered with the thin moist epithelial cells that allow the oxygen and carbon dioxide to exchange. So these gases actually can only cross across these cell membranes. For example, in case of flatworms as well as in the annelids, they use their outer surfaces as gas exchange surfaces. That is, you can see their skin. Okay, so the flatworms and the annelids, they use their outer surfaces, whereas the amphibians, they use their skin as a respiratory surface. So we can say, though the respiration actually takes place by the process of the diffusion mechanism, that is, so the respiration that takes place through the general body surface, you can say, is nothing but called as the diffusion mechanism. But in case of the amphibians, they use the respiratory surfaces and they use their skin as a respiratory surface. So such a type of respiration you call it as a cutaneous respiration. So here you can see in case of the flatworms in annelids. So here you have a respiratory surfaces. So these respiratory surfaces actually you have, they are always, they kept moist and they are being covered with thin moist epithelial cells. Thin moist epithelial cells so that it will allow them to take in oxygen and give out carbon dioxide very, very easily. So we can say that actually in case of what do you say, the flatworms as well as in the annelids, they have their outer surface always being moist. But in case of amphibians, you have a skin. So the skin actually used as a respiratory surface. So we can say the respiration through the body surface not only involves a simple organism, but also you see the respiratory body say surface. Body surface is nothing but your skin. So that is the reason why they have compared these amphibians to that of the lower organisms, stating that the respiration through the body surface is being taken also in the case of the amphibians. Why? Because amphibians use the skin as a respiratory surface. And such a type of respiration you call it as a cutaneous respiration. You call it as a cutaneous respiration. Now, next is what? The respiration through the gills. The respiration through the gills. Now you all know actually the gills are very, very important, and these gills you not only find in the fishes but also in varied type of organisms. Actually, you find the gills. So the gills actually, what do? They increase the respiratory area, the surface area for respiration or for the gaseous exchange, and they are found in a variety of animal groups, including the arthropods, what do you say, even the terrestrial crustaceans. Even in the terrestrial crustaceans also you find the gills. In annelids also you find the gills. In fishes as well as in the amphibians you find the gills. So you can say the respiration through the gills or the gill respiration. So you find in the fishes. So now we have to talk with reference to the body segment. But when you're talking with different types of respiration, then you have to talk about with the even the lower organisms. So that is the reason why actually they are talking about the different types of respiration. So they have included even the invertebrates. So don't get confused. Okay, so the both the invertebrates as well as the vertebrates actually they have involved, and then they are giving the information over here. So here, when you talk about the respiration through gills, that they are saying the gills are not even present in the fishes and amphibians, but they are also present in certain arthropods as well as in the annelids. And these gills actually are convoluted outgrowths which contains the blood vessels, and actually they are organized into a series of plates, and they may be internal as you find it in the crabs as a fish, or they may be present external to the body as you see in case of amphibians. And the gills are very efficient in removing the oxygen from the efficient and remove the oxygen from the water and the amount of oxygen present in the water also. Okay, so here the respiration through the gills you see in case of the fishes. See, this is the fishes. You have the gills, and these gills actually consist of the gill arcs, and they are present just below the operculum. So these gills actually, since the fishes are aquatic, it is very, very important for them. The amount of oxygen is very, very less in case of the aquatic habitat. So how actually the gills help in taking the less amount of oxygen, though less amount of oxygen is being present in the aquatic habitat, how they take in and how they perform the respiration. Okay, so this is called as the respiration through the gills. Now, next is what? The respiration through the tracheal system. The respiration through the tracheal system, you all know actually many terrestrial animals, they possess on their respiratory, have the respiratory surfaces inside their body. So inside their body, and such type of respiratory system actually consists of a series of tubules, or you can say a series of tubes, and these tubes are called as nothing but the trachea. So these trachea are actually nothing but the tubes that carry the air directly to the cells for the gaseous exchange. Now, and these trachea consist of small spiracles. The spiracles are nothing but the openings of these trachea, and they are present at their body surface. So these spiracles actually will lead into the trachea, and they will branch into the smaller tubes, which are known as the tracheoles. So the body movements or the contraction will the speed up the rate of diffusion of these exchange of gases in this tracheal system. So the respiration through the tracheal system actually you see in the especially in case of the arthropods. You see in case of the arthropods. So the respiration through the tracheal system. The next is respiration through the gills. Now, sorry, lungs. So the respiration through the lungs, actually the lungs are the, what do you say, the well-defined, you can say, or the well-developed organs that are present mostly seen in the case of the vertebrates. So they are nothing but the ingrowths of the body wall, and they are connected to the outside by a series of tubes. So the lung breathing probably evolved about 400 million ago. And they are not entirely the sole property of the vertebrates, they are saying, but some terrestrial snails also have got the lungs. Also, so they are similar to the lungs. You can say they are not true lungs, but they also have the lungs, and in which the gaseous exchange will take place. So they are not only confined only to the vertebrates, but they are also present actually in case of the terrestrial animals, especially the terrestrial snails, even possess the lungs where the gaseous exchange will take place. So it is similar to that of the lungs. Okay. Amphibian lungs. Then you have the human respiratory system. You all know actually. So in the humans, we have got the lungs, how these lungs help in the process of respiration mechanism. So this system, respiratory system of the lungs, the human system consists of nothing but the lungs. You have the pathways connected to the lungs. So air enters the body, you all know, through the nose, and it is being warmed up and it is being filtered and it is passed through the nasal cavity. Okay, and from the nasal cavity, the air will pass to the pharynx. Okay, which possesses the epiglottis, and then from the pharynx. Okay, then actually it will through the epiglottis and through the larynx. That is the vocal cords. It will reach the what do you say, the internal organs. So after passing the pharynx, it will reach the larynx through the epiglottis and the trachea. Then it will reach the larynx. And from the larynx, actually, the air will move into the bronchi. And from the bronchi, it is carried into the lungs. So the lungs, in the lungs, you have got the alveoli will be there. So the lungs and the alveoli actually will take up. So, and these alveoli actually are being branched into a number of tubules which are called as the bronchi. And these bronchi actually are further divided into terminal branches, which we call it as nothing but the bronchioles. And these bronchioles will end up in the alveoli, you all know. Okay, so that is how the structure of what do you say, the lungs is there, and alveoli terminate, or they're being surrounded, you can say, by a network of thin-walled capillaries. So that is how actually the what do you say, the oxygen that we take in, or the air that we take in, has to pass through these stages, and then it has to enter into the lungs. So then the air will not directly enter into the lungs, but it will be carried by other different regions or be different parts of the body. First, it enters the nose to the nasal cavity, then it will reach the pharynx. Okay, from the pharynx, it will reach the larynx, passing through the epiglottis as well as the trachea. It will reach the larynx. Okay, then after reaching the larynx, then it has to enter into the lungs. And in the lungs, you all know actually, the lungs are divided into the what do you say, fine branches, which we call it as nothing but the bronchi. Bronchi in turn are divided into finer branches, which we call bronchioles. Bronchioles will end up in small what do you say, sac-like clusters, you can say, or bulb-like structures, which are called as the alveoli. And these alveoli are surrounded by a network of capillaries. Okay, so this is about the structure of, you can say, see here. This is the simple structure. So the air will enter through the nasal passage, then through the oral cavity. Okay, then it will reach the pharynx, then larynx, trachea. Then you have got the bronchi. In the lungs, you have got the bronchi. Two lungs are being present. These lungs actually are divided into the bronchi, and these bronchi will end up, what do you say, the bronchioles. Bronchioles will end up in the, what do you say, the alveoli. And actually, the whole, what do you say, the respiratory system is present in the chest cavity, which is being surrounded by the rib cage. So this is about the respiratory system of the humans. Okay. This is the basic. This is the trachea you have seen. So you have the rings of cartilage. Okay. So the trachea will, so the lungs actually, okay, through the trachea, it will go, and these trachea will enter into the lungs, each lung, and the trachea will divide into I told you bronchi. Bronchi will divide into bronchioles, and bronchioles will end up into nothing but the alveoli. So this is the pleural cavity, this is the diaphragm, and this is the pleural. So actually the lung is being surrounded by a membrane, which we call it as nothing but a pleural membrane. And inside the lung, you have a cavity, which is called as a pleural cavity. So through the trachea, oxygenated blood goes to the heart. So from through the the environment, first the deoxygenated blood actually, okay. So deoxygenated blood from the heart, it will reach the pulmonary arteriole. Okay, from there it will reach the capillaries, then it will reach the alveoli, then bronchiole, bronchus, pulmonary valve, and then it will get purified, and then the oxygenated blood again will go to the heart. So that is how actually the exchange of the what do you say, the blood will take place between the deoxygenated as well as the oxygenated. So how actually the blood is being, circulated. So the gaseous exchange across the capillaries. So this is the blood cells of alveolus, interior alveolus. So deoxygenated blood from the heart, it will reach, then you have the plasma, smallest blood vessel, and oxygenated blood again back to the heart. Okay, so you all know the lungs are very, very large lobed structures. They are paired organs present in the chest cavity, also known as the thoracic cavity, and thin sheets of this epithelium, like the pleura, separate the inside of the chest cavity from the outer surface of the lungs. So the bottom of the thoracic cavity actually is formed by the diaphragm, you can say. Okay, so this is how. So exhalation, this is the structure, inhalation and exhalation. Inhalation means taking in oxygen, then it will go to the lungs, and then exhalation is giving out the, what do you say, the air in the form of carbon dioxide. So this is about what you see about the respiratory system. Okay. Hello. Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Clear, ma'am.
Is it clear? So here, in case of the respiratory system, you have to talk about what? The different types of the respiratory organs that you find, okay, in the form of gills, in the form of lungs. But when you're talking about, because the fishes are included in the vertebrates and all those things, so that is why you have to talk. Even the amphibians, they take the respiration through the general body surface, through the skin. So that is why you have to mention about the different types of respiration. First, what is respiration? That is cellular respiration. What are the two different types of cellular respiration? That is anaerobic as well as aerobic. Then talk about the, what do you say, the different types of the respiratory organs and the mechanism of respiration. That is the respiration through the, what do you say, general body surface, that is through diffusion, then through the skin, then the respiration through the gills, through the trachea, and the respiration through the lungs. Okay. So I'll share one more small PPT is there, and then we will close with the respiratory system. Okay, see here in this PPT, they have given the respiration in fishes. So now we have to talk, so we have to compare. So when we are comparing the respiration, types of respiration as well as the respiratory organs in different vertebrate animals, we need to talk from the fishes to the, what do you say, the mammals. So because here we have to concentrate more on the vertebrate, because here they are asking about the diversity of the organ systems with reference to the respiratory system in case of the vertebrate animals. So we have to talk from the fishes. So just now we have seen what is respiration, what are the different types of respiration, okay, and what are the, what do you say, the respiration occurs through different, what do you say, the organs. Like you can say, you say the respiration through gills, respiration through lungs, respiration through the trachea, and all those things. Now we will see in different organ systems how the respiration will take place. Now, in case of fishes, you all know gills are the respiratory organs found in most of the fishes, aquatic organisms. And so they try to extract the dissolved oxygen. You all know actually in the aquatic habitat, the oxygen actually is present in a dissolved form, and the amount of oxygen is also very, very less. So these gills actually help them to extract the dissolved oxygen from the water and then excrete out the carbon dioxide. And these gills usually consist of thin filaments of tissue, branches, or slender to a tufted process that have a highly folded structure to increase the surface area. So it requires a high surface area for the gaseous exchange, especially in case of the aquatic organisms, because the water contains only a small fraction of the dissolved oxygen that the air does. So because free air has lot amount of oxygen, but when you're talking about the dissolved oxygen which is being present in the water, so it is very, very less. So that is why actually the gills that are being present in case of the fishes, they have a high surface area, and also they consist of a number of filaments. When you talk about the structure of a gill, they have gill filaments, gill arches are there, and each gill filament is divided into primary, lamellae, and these lamellae are actually of two types. We have primary lamellae as well as the secondary lamellae. So it has got a wide structure. So when you have a wide structure, definitely it occupies a larger surface area. So in case of fishes, why they're saying is, if you have a large surface area, then it will be easier for the fishes to actually go for the gaseous exchange. So that is the reason why the gills actually have got a branch, you can say, or you can have they have a number of thin filaments of the branches in the form of gill filaments. Primary gill filament, you can say secondary gill filament. So it has got a branched structure where it tries to occupy a larger area, and which will be very, very which is actually essential for the exchange of the gases. Okay, so that is how the respiration actually in the fishes will take place. So we can say respiration in fishes is by means of the gills. And the gills, what it will try to do? The gills will try to take the oxygen, dissolved oxygen that is present in very, very little quantity, and it will try to excrete out the carbon dioxide. And for this, the gills actually consist of a tuft of, you can say, thin filaments in the form of gill filaments, where you have a gill rachis is there. Gill rachis consists of the gill filaments, and these gill filaments actually are divided into lamellae. You can say primary lamella as well as the secondary lamella. So here, see, okay, so this is the gill arch. Now, just if you dissect, if you try to take a fish and then try to just leave the operculum, below the operculum only you find the gills. So this is actually the gill arch. So oxygen is being taken in and the carbon dioxide actually is being released out. Now see here, see, this is the gill arch and these are the gill filaments. Just now I have talked about, and these gill filaments again give out small branches, okay, in the form of primary lamella as well as the secondary lamellae. And here the blood vessels actually that pass through these gill arches. So this is, I mean, when you dissect and you take it out, this is actually the gills. They have actually about 6 to 7 pairs of gills, gill lamellae they have. Then respiration in amphibians. Now, respiration in case of amphibians, you can take an example for frog. And here in frog, just now we have seen that the respiration actually occurs through the skin. So that is why we can also call such a type of respiration as cutaneous respiration. So in the cutaneous respiration, so in addition to inhaling and exhaling the air through their lungs, these amphibians, so even they possess the lungs, but apart from that, they say that many amphibians actually totally depend on cutaneous respiration, where gas exchange occurs through the skin. So in order for cutaneous respiration, they require always they need to keep their skin moist. So the skin always must remain moist. So that is why actually the skin of these particular what do you say, the amphibians, they consist of actually the skin glands are present, which always try to secrete the mucus. So because of the mucus, secretion of the mucus, always the skin will be always kept moist and it will be slippery. So such a type of what is adaptation in case of these amphibians assist them or help them in the carrying out the respiration process. Okay, so that is how the respiration in amphibians will take place. So we can say respiration, or you can say amphibians not only respire through the lungs, but in certain cases, actually, they respire only through the lungs, because you all know actually amphibians are amphibious animals. That is, they are present both on the land as well as in the water. So when during in the water as well as, so when in the what do you say, the land, they will respire through the lungs. But when they are actually inside the water, what happens? They actually depend upon the skin. So they rely only on the cutaneous respiration, where the gaseous exchange will take place with the skin. So That is why we can see two types of respiration in case of the amphibians. That is through the lungs. That is the respiration through lungs, we call it as a pulmonary respiration, and the respiration through skin, we call it as nothing but the cutaneous respiration. So you can give the example as frog in case of the amphibians. Okay. Then next you have, so here, see, this is the lungs of frog. So here they don't not only possess the lungs, but also they respire through the skin. Just now we have seen. So this is the right lung, left lung, pulmonary artery, mouth, and all those things. Okay. Then you have respiration in reptiles. You can take the example as the lizard. Almost all the reptiles actually they breathe in through the lungs, and here the lung ventilation is actually different in each main reptile group. You find it in different way. They say that actually in scale reptiles, that is in squamata, here the largest group, the lungs are ventilated almost exclusively by the axial musculature. So you have got ventilation. Okay. So this is also the same. Okay, the musculature that is used during locomotion. So because of this constraint, most of the spammers are forced to hold their breath during the intense runs. Okay. So other reptiles, for example, they have adapted for breathing. For example, crocodiles. Now the crocodiles actually use a diaphragm. Okay. So that is analogous to the diaphragm that is present in the humans. So whereas turtles as well as the tortoises, what do? They use their muscles to allow the breathing. So we can say actually in case of reptiles, they also respire through the lungs, but with a little modification. Just now we have seen that is what they say is actually in each reptile group. In case of the scale reptile, that is in the squamata, the lungs are being ventilated and almost exclusively by the musculature, that is axial musculature. Okay. Then other reptiles, for example, crocodiles use a diaphragm, and whereas turtles as well as tortoises, they use the muscles to allow them the breathing. So this is how actually the respiration will take place in case of the reptiles. So this is actually, okay, so you have the lung, you have this is the bronchus, you have the trachea divided into two bronchi, and which when it enters into the lung, it divides further into bronchioles, and bronchioles will end up in the alveoli. So these are the tracheal rings, and you have the larynx, okay, then cricoid and as well as the arytenoid. The respiration in case of the birds. Okay, so here in birds, you have got the air sacs. air sacs. So when the birds actually inhale, first the air will travel through the it will travel through the air sacs, then it will go to the lungs, okay, through a series of the breathing tubes. Then the stale air will travel to the anterior air sacs, which is then exhaled. So likewise, in the respiration, it will not directly go, because as we see in other case of the vertebrate groups, it will pass through the, what we say, the trachea, larynx, and all those things. But in case of the birds, directly, the birds will inhale the air in the air sacs, and from the air sacs, it will travel to the lungs. It will travel to the lungs. So we can say the respiration in the birds consists of air sacs and breathing tubes, which actually allows the air to flow through the lungs in a single direction. So which will enable the bird to remove the oxygen from the air when they inhale, and then also when they exhale. So this is different for most of the vertebrates. Why? Because actually that have air traveling through the lungs in two directions, in and out. But in case of the birds, it is only through one direction. But in case of the other vertebrates, you have two directions, because oxygen is being taken in one direction, and carbon dioxide actually is being exhaled out through another direction. So that is why here you have a two-directional phenomena, but in case of the birds, you have only a one-directional phenomena. So that is why the system of air sacs and breathing tubes, so it possesses air sacs as well as a breathing tubes, which will allow the air to flow through the lungs in a single direction, and also enables the birds to remove the oxygen from the air when they inhale, and also when they exhale. That means in the form of carbon dioxide, like that. So this is different, they say, with reference to the other types of vertebrates. Okay. Then, so this is here, the respiratory system in case of the birds. Then respiration in case of mammals. You all know actually, now the mammals have got the diaphragm. So here mammals use a diaphragm. So mammals inhale by contracting the diaphragm, okay, which increases actually in size of the chest cavity, causing the air to rush into the lungs. So actually when you are taking in the air, so the diaphragm plays a very, very important role. Okay, so the mammals, when they inhale the air, so what happens? The diaphragm will contract. So it will inhale by contracting the diaphragm. So when once the diaphragm contracts, it will increase in size and it will open the chest cavity, causing the air to rush into the lungs. Then when once it rushes into the lungs, then the air will enter the alveoli. So actually in the alveoli itself, so you can say the alveoli actually is the site of exchange of gases. So this will create a high concentration of oxygen in the alveoli. The oxygen will diffuse into the bloodstream to the capillary. So like guys, like that, the oxygen actually will be taking in and exchange of gases will be taking place in the alveoli. So this is with reference to the mammals. Okay. So inside the blood, what happens? So through the alveoli, it reaches the blood, and inside the blood, there is high concentration of carbon dioxide. So the carbon dioxide will diffuse out again into the alveoli, and the diaphragm will then relaxes, and the pressure forces the air out into the lungs. So like that, the carbon dioxide will be released out. So when you are inhaling the air, so what happens actually, the diaphragm will contract. So when once the diaphragm will contract, the chest cavity actually will increase in size. So the air will enter into the rush actually will enter into the lungs, and into the lungs it will directly enter into the alveoli, and into the from the alveoli it will reach the bloodstream. So when into the bloodstream, actually what happens, there will be a high concentration of the carbon dioxide. So the carbon dioxide has to be diffused out. So it will diffuse out into the alveoli. So when once it gets diffused out into the alveoli, what happens? The diaphragm will relax, and when the diaphragm will relax, the pressure inside will force the air to go out of the lungs. So that is why the air will go out in the form of carbon dioxide out through the lungs. So that is how the inhalation as well as the exhalation will take place. So here the bronchi, bronchial tree as well as the lungs in case of the mammals. So here you have a larynx. This is the trachea. Okay. So the trachea actually will break up into this bronchi. So this is a primary bronchi. Then you have secondary bronchi, tertiary bronchi. Then it will end up in the bronchioles. And this is the cardiac nerves. That is how. Okay. So this is the pulmonary vein. Okay. So this is about the your what is it, the respiratory system. Yes, students. Any doubt you have? Hello.
No, no, ma'am. It's
No,
clear,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Is it clear? So here in the
Clear.
respiratory system, yeah, remember in the respiratory system, what you have to do, you have to talk about what do you mean by the respiratory system. Okay. Then after that, what are the different types of, what do you say, the respiratory mechanism? We have seen that is cellular respiration, aerobic as well as anaerobic. Then talk about the different types of respiration, like respiration through spiracles, respiration through trachea, respiration through skin, all those things. Then talk about the different, what do you say, the respiratory mechanisms, or you can say in different, what do you say, the chordate animals, like starting from the fishes. So fishes actually respire through gills. Then next it comes, so after fishes, so fishes, amphibians. Then you have amphibians now have got the lungs. Apart from the lungs, they also actually respire through the cutaneous respiration, that is through the skin. So fishes, you talk about amphibians, then reptiles. Okay. Then amphibians, reptiles, birds, as well as in the mammals. So how actually the respiration will take place. Okay. So that is how you have to talk about the respiration. Okay. Now we will, the last chapter that is there. Okay. We have a very, very little time, but still we will try to complete it. So we will go to the, what do you say, the nervous system of vertebrate. Okay.
You can extend, ma'am. 10 to 15 minutes, not a problem.
Yeah, yeah, that's what. Okay. Now we will discuss about the nervous system. So actually, like all other systems, like respiratory, excretory, okay, as well as the other systems, even the nervous system is very, very important. You all know it is a main system of the body and it will coordinate with other systems of the body. Okay. So from lower chordates to the higher chordates, it shows a lot of complexity, varied complexity it will show. And the structure is built on the same architectural plan, no doubt, but based on their habitat and the behavior of animals, actually you see the what do you say, the there is a diversity in the nervous system. So the nervous system actually shows, I mean, with reference to the what do you say, the brain, you have a lot of diversity actually in the chordate animals. Now the main function of this what do you say, the nervous system is nothing but it will respond to stimuli, it will coordinate with other systems, and also it helps in learning. So these are the main basic functions of the nervous system. So like all other systems, it is a main system of the body because it will coordinate the other system. So that is why we can say it is a very, very special system when compared to that of the other system, because always it has to be in coordination with the other systems, then only our body can work perfectly. Okay, if the brain system is not working, then there will not be any coordination and there will be a lot of, what do you say, the problem. So that is why we need to actually keep our brain calm. Okay, so it is a very, very important part or a system of our body coordinating the other systems of the body. Okay, so main functions we have seen, nothing but it responds to the stimuli, it will coordinate the other systems, and it also helps us in the learning. Now, when you talk about the nervous system actually is basically divided into three different types. Like you have central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, and you have autonomic nervous system. Now, central nervous system actually consists of nothing but the brain and the spinal cord. Now, it will coordinate the impulses, okay, then receives the stimuli from the receptor, and it will transmit it to the effectors. So that is the main role of the central nervous system, consisting of brain and spinal cord. Whereas peripheral nervous system, nothing but consists of the nerves that come out from the brain as well as the spinal cord. So about 10 to 12 cranial nerves as well as the spinal nerves are present. And so it will provide the connection between the receptor, central nervous system, as well as the CNS as well as the effectors. Okay. The next you have what? The autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system actually divided into two types, like we say, sympathetic as well as parasympathetic nervous system. So it innervates the smooth cardiac muscles and the glands, and it is concerned with the involuntary and the automatic body activity. That is what we call it as the voluntary as well as involuntary. So we can say this is a general, what is a classification of a nervous system. That is, they are divided into three types: central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, as well as the autonomic nervous system. So development of the central nervous system actually here, as well as the other special senses, how it has been evolved. Like see, it is the neural group. So from here, see, when you say actually the nervous system, then you can say the brain is in the form of nothing but a small nerve plate. So again, a little bit involved. So where you have actually a neural groove is there, and then you have a notochord. When you see to the third one, where it actually again it is being evolved, I mean, in a very what do you say, organized manner, where it has a neural crest as well as a notochord is there. And if you come to here, then you have a neural epithelium, neural cavity is there, which is being present, and also an ectoderm is there. And then here, if you see the fifth one, so still it is being, evolved highly, where it is possessing the neural crest, marginal layer, mantle layer, and all those. Okay, so that is how actually the development of this is with reference to central nervous system about the brain as well as the spinal cord. Now, what are the actually histological layers of the embryonic nervous tissue or the embryonic neural tubes? Now, basically, actually, they say that the nervous system actually consists of the three layers. One is called as the germinal layer. Then you have the mantle layer, as well as you have the marginal layer. Okay, so here germinal layer consists of actively dividing cells. It is formed from the connective tissue layer of the neural tube, and it is also called ependyma, and it also proliferates in the mantle cavity. Whereas the mantle cavity consists of embryonic neurons or neuroblast forming the gray matter. Okay, Then you have the marginal layer, which consists of nerve fibers and is surrounded by myelin sheath, and it forms the white matter. You all know actually you have in the what do you say, the two types of matter, that is white matter as well as the gray matter. So here we can say the gray matter actually is being formed from the mantle layer, whereas the white matter is being formed from the marginal layer. So apart from this, it also has the neurons and fibers which are supported by the neuroglia. So these are actually the three histological layers we can say which is present in the nervous system. One is called germinal layer, then mantle layer, as well as a marginal layer. Then general structure of the brain. When you talk about the brain, you all know actually the plan. Okay, the structure of the brain is almost same. So they are built on the same, what do you say, structure on the same plane. So you all know actually the brain, when you talk about the brain, it lies within the cranial cavity of the skull. It is very, very soft, wide, and somewhat flattened structure. So it consists of what? The ventricles. The brain is actually a hollow from within, and the cavities of it are present in various. So the cavities of the brain you call it as nothing but the ventricles. So the ventricle of heart is different and ventricle of brain is different. So don't get confused. So the cavities of the brain we call it as nothing but the ventricles. So heart is a very, very soft organ. It is enclosed within the cranial cavity of the skull. It is white colored and it is somewhat a flattened structure. So it poses what? A cavity. That cavity, cavities you got. So in various parts you have actually the cavities are being present and they are named according to the various regions also. Okay. So but basically speaking, they are called as nothing but the cavity. So we can say brain is divided or it consists of a number of cavities at various parts which are called as ventricles. Now these ventricles actually are being filled up with the lymph-like fluid which is called as the cerebrospinal fluid, and it is secreted by the what do you say, the anterior as well as the choroid plexus. This cerebrospinal fluid is secreted by the anterior as well as the posterior choroid plexus. Now see here. Now actually the brain is being covered, okay, by three layers. These layers or the membranes you can say, or layers you can say, or you can call them as meninges. So we can say we know where is brain located. Okay. Now coming to the layers of the brain or the coverings of the brain. So we can say brain is being covered by three layers or three meninges or three membranes. They are called as the pia mater, arachnoid, as well as the dura mater. Now pia mater actually is the inner membrane which is thin, soft, and vascular. Arachnoid actually is a middle layer which is delicate and highly vascular, and dura mater actually is the outer membrane which is very, very tough, and it lies inner of the cranium. So cranium. So here we can say of the pia mater. So it is closely applied surface of the brain, pia mater. It is the innermost membrane. It is very, very nearer to the brain. It is applied surface of the brain. Okay, and subdural cavity. And here also see here. So here the cavity it has, which is called as the subdural cavity. Then arachnoid as a arachnoid cavity. Okay, so both are there, are being there. Now coming to the histology of the brain, if you take a brain and then try to actually take a section of it, now the brain actually shows two regions. One is called as the outer region and the other one you call it as an inner region. Outer region is called as the cortex region and it is made of gray matter consisting of nerve cells, nerve fibers, neuroglia, as well as blood vessels. Whereas inner region, you call it as the medulla and it is made up of white matter. And it consists of only the nerve fibers and the glial cells. Okay. So this is about the brain. Now I have told you know, actually the cavities of the brain, and they are called as nothing but the ventricles. So here you have seen, see different types of cavities. So rhinocele, okay, then paracele, then you have iter, then you have, so they are actually called as, so first ventricle, second ventricle, then you have got the third ventricle as well as the fourth ventricle. So actually the cavity that is present in the olfactory lobe, you call it as the first ventricle and that is called as nothing but the rhinocele. Then the cavity that is being present in the cerebral hemisphere, okay, it is called as a paracele and it is being present in the cerebral hemisphere. It is called second ventricle. Likewise, you have the third ventricle which is present in the thalamic region, that is thalamencephalon. It is called as a third ventricle and it is called as the iter. And then you have the fourth ventricle, okay, which is present in the medulla oblongata, and that we call it as nothing but a metacele. So these are nothing but the ventricles of the brain. So they say actually basically the brain possesses four cavities: first ventricle, second ventricle, third ventricle, and fourth ventricle, and based on the region, they have named so. So like we have ventricle present in olfactory lobe called as first ventricle rhinocele, second ventricle is paracele, third ventricle is the iter, and the fourth ventricle is the metacele, which is present in the medulla oblongata. Okay, so these are the different parts of the brain. These are forebrain, midbrain, as well as the hindbrain. You all know actually the brain is divided further into three different regions: forebrain, midbrain, as well as the hindbrain. Now, forebrain consists of the olfactory lobes as well as cerebral hemisphere. Then you have a midbrain, and the midbrain consists of the optic lobes as well as the cerebellum. And the hindbrain you consist of nothing but the medulla oblongata as well as the spinal cord. So that is how actually we have seen. Now coming to the prosencephalon, that is the forebrain. Now the forebrain, just now I have told you, it consists of what? Olfactory lobe. It consists of cerebral hemispheres, and it consists of the diencephalon. So these are the three basic regions of the forebrain. Students, I'll go a little bit fast, okay? So here,
Okay, ma'am.
So olfactory lobe is outer anteriormost. Then you have cerebral hemispheres. Then you have got the third one is the diencephalon. So these are the three structures of the forebrain. Okay, so here see of the brain. Mesencephalon of the midbrain. Mesencephalon of the midbrain actually is the middle part of the brain. It lies below the cerebral hemisphere. Okay, and actually it has four rounded optic lobes called as corpora cardia. Okay. Hello, ma. Mute change. Okay. Now the function of this is what? It is slight and acute hearing. It helps in the hearing mechanism. This is about the midbrain. So midbrain consists of what? Optic lobes. Remember that. Then you have again the hindbrain, which is called rhombencephalon. It is divided into cerebellum, pons verselli, and you have medulla oblongata. Okay. So like this. So function of the cerebellum is equilibrium and coordination of voluntary muscles. Okay. And medulla oblongata function is controls the involuntary actions. So this is about this. Now coming to the organization of we can say in different chordate animals. So in chordata, the brain we have seen. So here without any division, like forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. So forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. So though they don't have any divisions. They don't have any divisions. They have just a simple compact brain that is present in the cephalochordata. As you see in higher vertebrates, it is divided to forebrain and midbrain and hindbrain. So it doesn't have, there is no division at all. It only consists of hollow dorsal nerve tube just above the notochord, and no ganglia are being present, and the neural tube is there, no doubt. Okay, so anterior and end is slightly enlarged, which is called as nothing but the brain, and it has got a neural tube. It has a hollow central tube. Okay, called as a neurocele, which is filled with the cerebrospinal fluid. So cerebral vesicles or the brain, it consists of the receptor organ, which is called as the pigment spot. So this is in the cephalochordates. Then when you talk about the cyclostomes, that is lamprey fishes, here also the brain is very, very primitive. The subdivision is not well marked. Only two olfactory lobes it has, okay, which are very prominent, and they are very small. Then pineal apparatus and spinal body is well developed because of the absence of, but absent in mixing, sorry. So connected to the pineal apparatus, you have an epithalamus. Then you have optic lobes are there, but they are imperfectly developed. Medulla oblongata is well developed, but cerebellum is a small transverse band, and it has a well-defined infundibulum from the epithalamus. This is in case of lamprey, cyclostome fishes. Then you have actually in the fishes only elasmobranchs. Example, the scoliodon. Okay, see here. This is the view of the scoliodon. So here the brain of fishes are more advanced than that of the cyclostomes, but it shows subdivision. So in elasmobranchs, olfactory organs are enlarged, and then optic lobes are moderate in size. Midbrain is quite larger in size. Pineal body is well developed. Cerebellum is also well developed. Okay, and then ruffle-like restiform bodies are also present. So from cyclostomes, actually it's a fishes. After cyclostomes, you can say the brain of fishes is well developed. Then bony fishes' brain is more specialized than the elasmobranch fishes, we can say. And then next is amphibia. Now in case of the amphibia, that is frog, still it is well advanced, you can say. Here you have small olfactory lobes and greater optic lobes. Corpus striatum is present. Cerebral hemispheres are again more developed. Optic lobes are dominant in the center, but it has more developed cerebellum. And you have medulla, which is very small, and the pineal body is present. This is in case of amphibians. Then in case of reptiles, that is lizard, it shows advancement in size and proportion than that of the amphibia. So that means you can say the brain is somewhat well developed, and telencephalon is increases in size, olfactory lobes are connected, and there is a greater thickness. Then paraspinal body is more ciliated, you have auditory lobes, third ventricle is reduced, cerebellum is somewhat pear-shaped. This is example they have given in case of lizard. You can see dorsal view as well as ventral view. And you have the birds, that is the pigeon. Here even brain is somewhat larger than that of the reptiles, but olfactory lobes are smaller, hemispheres are larger, smooth, third ventricle is narrow, optic lobes are well developed, and cerebellum is also very enlarged. So this is the pigeon brain. If you see example, you can, that is of birds. Okay. So this is all about the the different you can say the diversity, okay, with reference to the brain in different chordate animals. Now, students, apart from this, you also should talk about the sense organs. Now, because you have in your syllabus not only the brain as well as the sense organs. Now, sense organs with reference to eye, with reference to ear, and in case of the the fishes also, you find the lateral line system, which is very, very sensory. So likewise, you have different olfactory, the cells are also there, which actually helps in the olfactory, that is sensing the smell and all those things. So different types of sense organs in the form of eye, in the form of ear, in the form of olfactory, the sense, as well as the lateral line system that is being present in fishes. So this I will provide you the material. So this also you have to deal in case of the nervous system, as if they ask a question, suppose if they ask a question on sense organs, if they ask a question on the brain, directly you talk about the brain. Okay, what is a brain, and how actually the brain has been evolved, and how you find the diversity of the brain in different chordate groups. But apart from that, if a question is being asked in the sense organs, then you have to give a list of the different sense organs and also the diversity of these sense organs in different vertebrate animals. Okay, so ear is there, eye is there, then you have what the lateral line system in fishes is there, olfactory, the sensory organs are there. So different types of sensory organs, this I will provide you the material. Okay, so till now, if you have any doubt, you can ask. Yes, students? Hello?
No, ma'am, clear, ma'am. No
So
doubts,
with this, with this, we have already tried to complete, if not actually to the fullest extent, but up to some certain extent, I hope you have understood. Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, can you share me this PPTs? Actually, in that our textbook, we don't have any respiratory system and circulatory system. The pages are missing.
Yeah, I know. I have referred the book also. So that is the reason why you don't bother about the material. Right from the whole first, paper, whatever I have taught, everything I will send you. Okay, so I am actually trying to prepare in a PDF form, and then one by one, I'll be sharing it in the group. So don't bother about it. I'll give you the material. So if you have any doubt, if I have, today is the last class. You don't have more classes.
Ma'am, can you tell me the otherwise? Can you share me the model papers of this book chapter, ma'am?
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. Model papers. I mean, you want question papers, right?
Model paper.